All praise, glory, and honor is most certainly due to the Most High, the God of the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Peace to you in the name of Jesus. This is your brother Elisha Israel of the household of faith. And I count it truly a blessing each and every single time that I can come before you and preach the word of God. Never do I count it as a light thing to do so. All right, brothers and sisters, I'm not going to keep you long at all. I say that often. And really today is I mean it every time I say it. That is my intent. And what I think is long, you might think is long, but nevertheless, this is short. And this is just, I want to clear up some confusion dealing with the Day of Atonement and a doctrine that's pretty, it's old, but it was brought to my attention again. And I didn't cover it when I did the lesson on the Day of Atonement. So, and that is referring to the scapegoat and what the scapegoat is referring to. I mean, I touched upon it. I showed you what it's pointing to. But some would say it's pointing to Satan. Okay, they say that this is pointing to Satan. So I'm gonna read it, and then we're gonna look into it. Okay, so this is Leviticus, the 16th chapter, where you see what happens on the Day of Atonement. Okay, so it says, excuse me. It says in Leviticus, the 16th chapter, in verse 8, and Aaron shall cast lots upon the two goats, one lot for the Lord and the other lot for the scapegoat. Okay, so now some would say that this scapegoat is referring to, to Satan. Okay, that's just simply not the case. All right, and the word they get there is Azazel, Uzazel. It's spelled Azazel in English. Azazel. All right, and that's what they say. Well, that's referring to this demon. Okay, if you really look into it, that's what they refer it to. They say it's referring to a demon, and actually it was referring to Satan, and that's not the case. Really, when you look at the word, okay, if you just look at it in the Hebrew, Azazel, it refers to remove, like a departure. Okay, from is and Azor, goat of departure, the scapegoat. Okay, so it's talking about a goat that's going to leave or be removed. All right, and I want to read here, and let's see, I want to go to the book of Hebrews just to show you, because that one that went, see, the two goats represent, one was sacrificed, and that represents the Messiah, but the other one also represents the Messiah. Okay, and it points to, because remember that one that Allah failed to be a scapegoat, he was taken into the wilderness, okay, by a fit man, and all the sins were placed on him, and he was taken into the wilderness. Okay, so in verse, just to show you that, in verse 9, in verse 8 again, it says, and Aaron shall cast lots upon the two goats, one lot for the Lord and the other lot for the scapegoat. And Aaron, verse 9, and Aaron shall bring the goat upon which the Lord's lot fell, an offering for a sin offering, but the goat on which the lot fell to be the scapegoat. So one was sacrificed, just like the Messiah was sacrificed. But the one that was to be the scapegoat, it says, shall be presented alive before the Lord to make an atonement with him and to let him go for a scapegoat into the wilderness. Okay. Let's see. Let's keep reading. I'm going to pick it up at verse 20. It says, and when he had made an end of reconciling the holy place, he had to spread blood everywhere. It said, the tabernacle, the congregation, and the altar, he shall bring the live goat. That's the scapegoat. Then it says, and Aaron shall lay, in verse 21, and Aaron shall lay both his hands upon the head of the live goat and confess over him all the iniquities of the children of Israel and all their transgressions and all their sins, putting them upon the head of the goat, and shall send them away by the hand of a fit man into the wilderness. Just again, all the sins were placed on the Messiah, all the sins of the world, right? And he had, just like that goat had to bear it, it says, and that goat shall bear upon him all their iniquities unto a land not inhabited, and he shall let go the goat in the wilderness. Okay, so must all the sins be laid upon Jesus. Okay, just to show you that real quick, because again, I'm not going to keep you long. Just to show you that in verse Romans 5 and verse 10, it says, "For if we were enemies, for if when we were enemies, we were reconciled to God by the death of his son." See, it's all about reconciliation, making atonement. Much more being reconciled, we shall be saved by his life. And not only so, but we also joy in God through our Lord Jesus Christ, by whom we have received the atonement. Okay, now let's go to Hebrews the 9th chapter, because just like that scapegoat went off into his place, understand that the Messiah, he went into the heavens. Okay. This is Hebrews the 9th chapter. It says, "But Christ being come and high priest of God, of good things to come, by a greater and more perfect tabernacle, that is to say, not of this building." So where did he go? Again, what was in the tabernacle was a pattern of what's in the heavens. Okay, so he went into the most holy places before the throne, or before the throne of the Father. Okay, that's where he went. So it said, "For if the blood of bulls and goats and the ashes of a heifer sprinkling the unclean sanctified to the purifying of the flesh, how much more shall the blood of Christ?" See, just like he had a sin offering, he is our sin offering. It says, "Who through the," like we just read, he is our atonement. It said, "Who through the eternal spirit offered himself purge without spot to God, purge your conscience from dead works to serve the living God." So that's what that's referring to. Again, I'm gonna skip down. We still in 9. I'm gonna skip down to verse 23. It says, "It was therefore necessary that the patterns of things in the heavens should be purified with these things." See, the sanctuary was a pattern of what was in the heaven. Okay. Then it says, "For Christ," it says in verse 23 again, it was therefore necessary that the patterns of things in the heavens should be purified with these, but the heavenly things themselves with better sacrifices than these." Verse 24, "For Christ is not entered into the holy place made with hands, which are the figures of the truth." Okay, so he didn't go, beyond the veil, in the sense of in a tabernacle. But where did he go? He went into the heaven of heavens. Okay, and he went before the throne of the Father. Okay, and see, and he just used the ghosts we used to show all, even the high priest, everything that's being done is showing what he did or what he would do. "For Christ is not entered into the holy places made with hands, which are the figures of the truth, but into heaven itself." Okay, and he went there with blood, with a sacrifice, which was himself, and it was for all the sins of man. It says now to appear so it says in verse 24 again, it says, "For Christ is not entered into the holy places made with hands, which are the figures of the truth, but into heaven itself, now to appear in the presence of God for us." Okay, so that's what he did. Now, so where do we get just one quick, Brother Sanders, and peace to everybody's listening. He says, "As always, you're on time with your lessons. I was restudying the lessons there of Atonement and Passover. They're similar as Jesus is taking the sins of the people and putting them on himself." See, all those sacrifices, okay, so there's a difference, but all those sacrifices were pointing unto him. Okay, all those sacrifices were pointing unto him. He came in the volume of the book, and everything that they were doing was pointing to him, because he's the ultimate sacrifice. All right. Now, when you say they are similar in the sense that Jesus is, matter of fact, just to show you, we just read in Romans 5 that he was our atonement in 1 Corinthians. Then I'm gonna get back to where you get this Satan from. That's what people get that Satan from, not you specifically, but what people get that the scapegoat refers to Satan. If you go to 1 Corinthians 5 and the 7th verse, I'm gonna just get right to it. It said, "Purge out therefore the old leaven, that ye may be a new lump." So in other words, you can't be indifferent to sin. You got to get all the malice, wickedness, false doctrine. You got to get that out. Okay, that's what that's pointing to. Then it says, why? It says, Purge out therefore the unleavened, that ye may be a new lump, as ye are unleavened, for even Christ our Passover is sacrificed for us. So we just saw he was an atonement, and then we see he's a Passover. But when you look at what took place on these days, you understand that there is a difference. And what I mean by that is, yes, it's all pointing to the Mashiach or the Messiah, but at the same time, when you look at the Passover, okay, that pointed to him. They took it on the 10th day, kept it into the 14th day, which was a trial period, to show that he was really indeed without sin. And then he was sacrificed on that day. But what happened? They had to come up under his blood to be literally passed over, to pass over from the wrath of God. They are similar. So if you want to escape the wrath of God, you got to come out with his blood. But the atonement, brothers and sisters, also pointed to the sacrifice that was made, shows a different element to the sacrifice, or the aspect of the Messiah's sacrifice, and that is the atonement, the reconciliation. Okay, so reconciliation, to be reconciled back into the Father, the breach of the gap, the abyss, if you will, that separates man from the Father because of sin is filled. It is repaired through what the Son did in his sacrifice. So he reconciles us back unto the Father, makes things right again. Okay, and in doing so, he's paid the atonement, or the ransom, which is the price of blood, the life. Blood has to be shed. So he pays that price. And then in addition, he takes all the sins upon himself that was supposed to be on us. And then also he makes intercession on our behalf to the Father. So he's in the gap, if you will, not just making reconciliation because he's paid the price, but also because he's making intercession on our behalf. And he is a perfect intercessor to do it because he's been in the flesh. He knows what it's like to be in the flesh. All right. So they are similar, but they're different in those aspects. All right. One is referring to specifically, telling you have to come up under his blood to escape the wrath of God. The other is referring to reconciliation, atonement, so that we can be justified. Now, I want to read something. Now, this is from the Zondervan's Bible commentary. This is actually an NIV commentary, which the NIV is not a version of the Bible that you should get. But I did want to read this because it makes a point. Again, this is Zondervan's. It's an abridgment of the expositor's Bible commentary, and it says something about this idea where this notion that this is referring to Satan or some demon comes from. And that's what I'm focusing on. Not necessarily something that's, written differently in the NIV. So it says on page 144 of the NIV Zondervan Bible commentary, just a point. It says, what is the scapegoat? In later Jewish theology, the book of Enoch uses the word as a name for one of the fallen angels, Azazel. So it says Enoch's extensive demonology is demonstrably late, circa or about 200 BC. So that's where you get that idea. That's where people get that idea from. It's not biblical. It actually comes from a book that is not divinely inspired. If you check out I did a lesson on the book of Enoch some months ago. Check that out. So you can't find, because again, you can't find that idea in the Bible. They have to go outside of the Bible to find that. And the copy of the book of Enoch that they have right now that is used, the various versions are not divinely inspired, and I show that. But nevertheless, it says it often uses late Aramaic forms for names of the demons, which suggests that they were a post-biblical invention. Enoch is dependent on Levi 16 rather than vice versa, and is no guide to the interpretation of Leviticus. And that's a good point. How you going to go, how you go, it's dependent on Leviticus, but you should be looking at Leviticus and see it, and you don't. All right. So it says Enoch is dependent on Leviticus 16 rather than vice versa, and is no guide to the interpretation of Leviticus. A much simpler view goes back to the Septuagint of 200 BC. The first part of Azazel can mean goat, and the last part is from a verb that means go away. Compound nouns like this are rare in ancient Hebrew, but new evidence from them is turning up in the Ugaritic, that's what it says. It is simply the designation of the goat to be taken away. And here it says the scapegoat. In Numbers 29 and 11, the scapegoat is called the sin offering for atonement. So that's where people get that idea from. They don't get that idea from the Bible. They get that idea from, actually, let me scratch that. Most people just say it and they don't know where it comes from, like a lot of things. But when you track it down to some books outside of the Bible. So when you talking about Azazel, is that scapegoat referring to Satan or some demon? Absolutely not. It's all pointing to what the Messiah would do. And with that, brothers and sisters, I told you I won't keep you long. We have the Household of Faith. I want to remind you that we meet every Sabbath at 5925 West 25th Avenue in Gary, Indiana at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. We live stream right here on the Israel Teach YouTube channel, as well as at www.israelteach.org. If you've been edified through the ministry and would like to leave a donation, you can do so on our website at www.israelteach.org. 100% of the proceeds go to the work of the ministry, not in our pockets. In addition, brothers and sisters, I will be in Columbus, Ohio on Friday, October 25th, 2019 from 12 to 5:30 in the Northern Lights meeting room. That's the library in Columbus. And on the Sabbath, I'll be on October 26th. I'll be there in Linden, the meeting room 2 from 1 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. And I'll be back at Northern Lights meeting room 1 from 1 to 4:30 on that Sunday, October 27th. And I just wanted to point that out. So if you're in Columbus, come out and hear the word of God. That's what's going to be preached. And my brother Elvis and his wife are out there. And so we're just trying to spread the word as we should. And with that, brothers and sisters, it is always my prayer that you were edified.